All right, listen up. This is a Code Ninja security advisory. We're issuing a critical alert right now about an active threat to industrial operations. The information in this briefing is extremely time sensitive and needs your immediate attention. We're white hat security researchers. Our job is to find these dangerous vulnerabilities before the bad guys do, and then work with vendors and operators, people just like you, to get things secured. We've uncovered a pretty sophisticated kill chain that's targeting SCADA systems. So in this advisory, we're going to show you exactly how it works and, more importantly, how you can defend against it. We've laid this out to be as clear and actionable as possible. We'll kick off with the threat itself, then map out the attack chain, look at the potential damage, and then get to the most important part, what you need to do right now. We'll also touch on how this all came to light. Let's get right into it. So at the very heart of this alert is something we're calling an industrial kill chain. And this isn't just about a single bug. It's about how two seemingly separate flaws can be linked together to cause a truly devastating outcome. The threat is what's known as a symbiotic vulnerability chain. It involves two specific CVEs. Now, on their own, CVE-2024-7587 and CVE-2025-0921 are, they're problematic. But when you chain them together, they create this rock-solid path for an attacker with low privileges to completely shut down a critical engineering workstation. So how does this actually work in the real world? Let's walk through the anatomy of this attack step by step. Because once you understand the mechanism, the defense starts to make a lot more sense. The first link in this chain is what we call the enabler. That's CVE-2024-7587. It's basically an incorrect default permissions vulnerability. What happens is, during the installation of a utility called GenBroker32, the permissions on a key directory get set all wrong, basically giving access to, well, everyone. It's like leaving the master key to your control room right on the welcome mat. This simple mistake gives any user on the system, doesn't matter what their privilege level is, full write access to really important configuration files. Now for the second link, the execution. CVE-2025-0921. This is where things get weaponized. There's a service called the pager agent that runs with the highest privilege possible, system. It's designed to write logs to a file path, a path that's specified in that vulnerable config file we just talked about. So an attacker can now just change that path. They point it to something called a symbolic link. You can think of it like a malicious shortcut. And this shortcut doesn't lead to a log file, it points straight at a critical Windows system file. The pager agent service, completely blind to this trick, just follows the shortcut and starts writing its log data directly into that system file, corrupting it beyond any hope of repair. So let's just put it all together. You've got CVE 2024-7587, the enabler. It bypasses authorization by leaving that config file totally exposed. Then you have CVE 2025-0921, the execution. It leverages that open door to perform a privileged file write, which leads to total system corruption. One opens the door and the other one walks right through to deliver the payload. Okay, now let's talk about the blast radius. This is where we go from a logical flaw in some code to real physical disruption. And this, right here, is why this advisory is so incredibly critical. This quote from the technical analysis really just says it all. The target in the proof of concept is a file called cng.sys. That's the kernel moat driver for Windows' whole cryptography API. Corrupting a file this fundamental doesn't just crash one application, it paralyzes the entire machine, and by extension, the entire operation it controls. And what does that paralysis actually look like? Well, first, the SCDA workstation is effectively bricked. It gets trapped in this persistent, unrecoverable boot loop. For your operators, that means a total loss of visibility. They can't monitor pressures, temperatures, flow rates, anything. It also means a total loss of control. The interface they use to send commands, or more importantly, emergency stops, is just gone. The economic fallout from this, especially in a manufacturing setting, can be absolutely catastrophic. So let's be crystal clear here. If an attacker successfully exploits this vulnerability chain, the result is a permanent denial of service. That workstation is not coming back online. It's going to require a complete OS reinstall from scratch, which means significant, painful downtime. All right, now for the most important part of this entire briefing, the defense protocols. You need to act on this information immediately. Here's exactly what you need to do to patch and mitigate this threat. Okay, the response you need to take varies depending on your product. For modern Genesis users on version 11.00, it's straightforward. Upgrade to version 11.01 right away. For Genesis 64 and Iconic Suite users, a fix is on the way, but for now, you absolutely must apply mitigations. And then there are the legacy systems, MCWork 64, Genesis 32, and BizViz. For these, there is no fix planned, and that is a critical distinction. So this really splits everyone into two distinct groups. You've got those who can patch their systems, and then you've got those who are using unpatchable, often legacy products. The advice for each group is different, so let's break it down right now. If you can't patch yet or you're waiting for one, you have to break the kill chain yourself. And you can do this by fixing that enabler vulnerability directly. You need to go to the C:"Program Data Iconics folder and harden its access control list, or ACL. That's the list that says who can read, write, and access stuff in that folder. You have to remove the everyone permission. That one action breaks the first link in the attack. It stops the config file from ever being modified. Beyond that, it's all about defense in depth. Disable services you aren't using, and make sure your network access is locked down tight. Let me say this again, because this is absolutely vital. If you were using MCWork 64, Genesis 32, or BizViz, the vendor has stated there will be no fix. These are considered retired products. That means mitigation isn't just a temporary band-aid, it is your permanent defense. Honestly, the vendor's official recommendation here is to migrate to a modern, supported platform as soon as you possibly can. We're sharing all of this with you as part of what's called a coordinated vulnerability disclosure process. We think it's important you understand the timeline because it shows the really careful, deliberate process that led us to this public advisory today. The initial discovery was actually made back in early 2024. The first vulnerability, the enabler, was published that October. The second one followed in May of 2025. This kind of phased approach is designed to give vendors time to prepare fixes while making sure defenders, you, have the info you need to protect yourselves. It really wasn't until the full scope was understood, especially the severe impact on these legacy products, that this full public advisory became necessary. We're getting near the end of this advisory, but really, for you, the work is just beginning. Our final message is pretty simple. Stay vigilant. This vulnerability is just a powerful reminder of all the hidden complexities lurking in our industrial software. The big lesson here is that a single misconfigured folder permission was enough to enable a full system takedown. Your defenses are only ever as strong as your weakest link. So we'll leave you with this question. Have you checked yours? Upgrade if you can, mitigate if you can't, and if you're on a legacy system, you need to migrate now. Stay safe and stay vigilant.